I'm Sam Reichert with obtvlive.com. I'm introducing to you today the first in a series of videos that recognize the important contributions of individuals in the past and their impact upon the city of Olive Branch. It's called our Hall of Fame program. Olive Branch has changed significantly since the Chickasaw Indians were the only inhabitants of this area way back in the early 1800s. Pontotoc Treaty of 1832 opened the West, in this case present-day Mississippi, to European settlers who were coming to the New World by the thousands. Many people played a role in making Olive Branch the city we know today. In 2007, it occurred to me that we might just forget the contributions of these individuals if we didn't make an effort to recognize and preserve their memories. The Olive Branch Hall of Fame was born, and today we recognize individuals each year that helped make Olive Branch to become a great place to call home, to work, and to play. Without each of these individuals' contributions, Olive Branch would not have become known as a great place to live, one of America's best places to live, the fastest growing city in America. I am honored to be a part of this group, and I'm honored to narrate this presentation. We honor and salute these special individuals who are representatives of the hundreds of hard-working, dedicated citizens of Olive Branch whose lives have been and are a testament to all that is good in our community. They are our parents, our friends, our neighbors, whose efforts and accomplishments and dreams over their lifetimes have moved Olive Branch forward and built the foundation upon which our city stands today. We should build upon their legacy by looking back at their accomplishments and draw inspiration to be better than we think we can be, and strive to achieve things that they never could have imagined. And we need to dedicate ourselves to continue to make Olive Branch the shining city on a hill. The first 10 inductees into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame are B.J. Chain Sr., M.C. Harrington, Jan Johnson, Chief Lush Bun Tubby, Jack McCollough, Mayor D. Milton Nichols, Bruce Payne Sr., Homer Skelton, Milton Blocker, and Stephen Flynn. Bella J. Chain was born in Mount Olive, Mississippi on August the 8th, 1906, the youngest of 10 children. He attended Johnson Grade School and Mount Olive High School through the 11th grade, finishing his senior year at Simpson High School, where he lettered in football, baseball, and basketball. He attended Mississippi College, graduating in 1928 with a degree in chemistry, and again lettered in 3 sports. He was on the 1927-1928 Mississippi College basketball team that won the National SIAA Championship, which is comparable to today's NCAA National Championship. He briefly attended the University of Mississippi, where he earned his MA degree in school administration. He came to Olive Branch in 1928 to take a job as a teacher and a coach at the DeSoto Agricultural High School. It is said he got off the train at the foot of Depot Street, walked up the Depot Street hill to Woods Drug Store on the corner of Pigeon Roost and Depot, where he chanced to meet another 1928 hire, an attractive red-haired beauty from French Camp, Mississippi, Ruby Elmira Black. BJ, as he was called all his life, was smitten, and 2 years later they were married. They had 2 children, Betty Carolyn Shoemake of Olive Branch and Bella J. Chain Jr. of Oxford. B.J. Chain was employed by the Olive Branch school system from 1928 until 1971. During those 43 years, he served this city from 1928 until 1936 as a high school math and science teacher and as the athletic coach. From 1936 until 1955 as the superintendent of the Olive Branch Consolidated Schools, and from 1955 until his retirement in 1971 as the principal of Olive Branch High School. He was a major factor in the peaceful integration of the Olive Branch schools in 1970. Titles and positions didn't mean a lot to BJ, but they gave him the opportunity to reach out and mentor, tutor, and educate the children of this community, especially those from poor families who had a difficult time, whom he called his strugglers. Many of those students owe their later success in life to a man who just would not let slip through the crack and not get an education. He was president of the DeSoto County Teachers Association, president of the Northwest Region Mississippi High School Literacy and Athletic Association, president of the DeSoto Retired Teachers Association, and president of the Olive Branch Lions Club. Following his death on March 29, 1999, The B.J. Chain Public Library was named for him, a fitting honor to a man who had dedicated his life to educating the children of this community. He was one of the 10 people selected as the charter inductees into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame in 2007. Bella B.J. Chain exemplified all that is good in America and was arguably Olive Branch's outstanding citizen of the 20th century. M.C. Clay Harrington. Clay Harrington was born on August 5, 1924 in Stonewall, Mississippi, to Blanche Fort and C.C. Harrington. He had one older brother and one older sister. He was raised in Stonewall and attended grade school in Bahia and Olive Branch. In 1940, the Harrington family moved to Olive Branch. Clay attended the Olive Branch High School, where he was outstanding football player for the Eagles, graduating in 1942. In 1948, he was married to Eleanor Woods and would remain his wife for the rest of his life. They had 2 children, Michael and Carol Allen. Clay, as he was known to everyone, first worked for Mid-South Milk Producers and then Chicago and Southern Airlines before starting his own company, M.C. Harrington Distribution Incorporated, in 1948, which was a distributor of petroleum products for Standard Oil of Kentucky and later Chevron. He would manage the company for nearly 50 years until his death in 1995. He was also owner of Harrington LP Gas Company from 1958 until 1979. He served as an alderman from 1953 until 1961, at which time he was elected mayor. He would serve as mayor for 16 years until 1977. During his second term as mayor in the late 60s, he approached Holiday Inns with a proposal for them to build an airport in Olive Branch. Holiday Inns brought the idea, and Harrington pulled the real estate package together for them, which resulted in the development of the 3,000-acre Holiday Industrial Park, Olive Branch Airport, and Holiday Inn University. He was the seminal event that opened the door for the tremendous growth that would come to Olive Branch in the last quarter of the 20th century. Clay was an avid golfer who combined his hobby with business by building and owning Holiday Golf Club, Plantation Golf Club, and Cherokee Valley Golf Club. His Holiday Golf Club, developed in the early 70s on the grounds of Holiday Inn University, was one of the first daily fee courses in the Memphis metropolitan area. In addition to golf, Clay loved painting, woodworking, calligraphy, and was a staunch supporter of Ole Miss athletics and a personal friend of legendary Ole Miss football coach Johnny Vaught. He was president of the Olive Branch Country Club, an officer of the Lions Club, a charter member of the Olive Branch Chamber of Commerce, and a director on the corporate board of directors of Bancorp South. M.C. Harrington Memorial Drive in Metro Industrial Park was named in his honor following his death on May 5, 1995, at the age of 70. M.C. Clay Harrington was one of the 10 charter inductees selected for the Olive Branch Hall of Fame in 2007. Jan Johnson was born Jan Rogers in Shannon, Mississippi on November the 1st, 1927, to Nancy and Charlie Rogers. She had 3 older brothers. She was reared and attended grade and high school in Shannon. She then received 2 years of nursing training at the St. Vincent School of Nursing in Jacksonville, Florida, which prepared her for a 20-year career in nursing. In 1950, she married Pete Johnson, who was serving in the United States Navy Submarine Service. Pete's duty assignments had them living up and down the East Coast before he retired after 22 years of service. They settled in Key West, Florida. Jan became very active with the Key West Chamber of Commerce and represented Key West at the 1958 National Chamber of Commerce Convention in Charleston, South Carolina. The city of Key West gave Jan and Pete a trip to Havana, Cuba in appreciation of her civic contributions to the city. In 1967, Pete accepted a position as manager of the Olive Branch Country Club, and they moved to Olive Branch. A year later, on November 1st, 1968, Jan teamed up with Scotty Davidson, and they opened Mid-South Factory Outlet, a men's clothing store in the old downtown business district in what was the former Western Auto Building. After 4 years, in 1973, they built a larger facility at the old Highway 78 Blocker Street intersection. 9 years later, in 1982, they built and moved into an even larger building on Highway 305, which they would enlarge twice in 1987 and 1990, turning the area into the Mid-South Center. It was a perfect business partnership, and it is probably an overly simplification to say Scotty was in charge of the numbers and Jan was in charge of the customers, but that is the way it was, and it worked beautifully. Early on, Jan and Scotty realized there was business to be had in Olive Branch. But if they were going to be really successful, they had to draw customers out of Memphis. While others were experimenting with 30-second high-energy TV commercials, Jan and Scotty turned them into an art form. And anyone who lived in that era ever forget those rapid-fire 30-second commercials, always ending with both of them shouting into the camera, 10 minutes out Lamar Avenue in Olive Branch, Mississippi, y'all come. And come they did. Many people in Memphis knew about Y'all Come long before they knew anything about Olive Branch, and it helped put Olive Branch on the map. Jan and Scotty were ahead of their time, and they helped pave the way for the tremendous economic growth that is still taking place in Olive Branch today. Jan received many business-related honors during her lifetime. She served on the first board of directors of the DeSoto Economic Council. She served on the committee of the top 100 leaders of Mississippi. She accompanied Governor Cliff Finch on an economic trade mission to Guatemala. She was invited to Norfolk, Virginia for the commissioning of the Navy ship USS Mississippi. She served on the Image Committee of President Jimmy Carter's administration, and she was the first woman appointed a Mississippi colonel on the governor's staff in 1976. In 1958, Jan was very instrumental in getting the bill passed in Congress for the equal rights in pay for women. Jan R. Johnson died on August 1, 2015, at the age of 87. She was one of the 10 charter inductees into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame in 2007. Lush Bun Tubby was a minor chief of the Chickasaw Nation who lived in the Olive Branch area in the early 1800s. In 1832 and 1834, the United States government entered into a treaty called the Treaty of Pontotoc Creek with the Chickasaw, which forced them to give up their 6 million acres of land in North Mississippi and move to the Indian Territory in Oklahoma. The method used to break up the Indian holdings was to divide it into small parcels and give those parcels to the individual Indians, and then require them to sell their parcels over a 2-year period to the settlers moving to the area. If they didn't sell their land, the government would sell it for them and supposedly give them the money. The land was divided among the individual Indians based upon their ranking in the tribe and upon the size of their families. One of the provisions in the treaty stated 1,280 acres will be given to each Chickasaw family having 4 members or less. We know Lush Bun Tubby had 1,280 acres of land, so we can assume he had a wife and 1 or 2 children, but that's all we know about him. On April 13, 1836, somewhere in the vicinity of today's intersection of Goodman and Pigeon Roost Roads, he chanced to meet up with settlers Milton Blocker and Stephen Flynn and their families as they were traveling in wagons down the Pigeon Roost Trail out of Memphis. They were looking for land to purchase. He had land to sell. After some brief negotiations, a figure of $1.25 per acre was agreed upon, and Blocker and Flynn purchased the 1,280 acres from Lush Bun Tubby for $1,600. The community that would develop on that site would grow to become the town of Olive Branch. We do not know what happened to Lush Bun Tubby after he sold his land. Did he pack up his family and go to Memphis and take a riverboat down the Mississippi and up the Arkansas River, taking the route most of the people used to get to the Oklahoma Territory? Did he cross the river at Memphis and go overland across Arkansas, or did he just disappear into the backwoods and river bottoms of Mississippi and spend the rest of his days living off the land and doing odd jobs to provide for his family, as did many of the Indians who didn't want to go to Oklahoma? One can easily speculate that he, as an Indian with a sizable amount of money from the sale of his land and little protection from the law, could easily have vanished, a victim of foul play at the hands of the ruffians and the outlaws who roamed the area, preying on the Indians at that time. There's no record, and we just don't know. We have made a number of efforts to find out something about Lush Bun Tubby, and through the Chickasaw Tribal Council in Ada, Oklahoma, with no success. An inquiry directed to Chickasaw Nation Governor Bill Tubby was never answered. The portrait in the Olive Branch Museum and on the opposite page of the book downstairs was created after researching the Chickasaw of that era. May or may not be a reasonable likeness of Lush Bun Tubby. Lush Bun Tubby served a pivotal role in Olive Branch's history, and he was selected as a charter inductee into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame. John B. Jack McCollough. John B. Jack McCollough was born in Oak Park, Illinois on September 3, 1935, to John and Gladys McCollough. Jack had 1 sister, Miriam, and 2 children, son Jeffrey and daughter Jana. He was reared and attended school in Oak Park. After graduating from high school, Jack decided he wanted to become a cattle rancher and moved to New Mexico and enrolled at New Mexico State University, majoring in cattle ranching and business administration. After a year, he had second thoughts, moved back closer to home, and enrolled at Michigan State University, majoring in criminology. After college, Jack became active in radio in Chicago and later became a staff announcer at WHTC Radio in Holland, Michigan. He became news director at station WKBZ in Muskegon, Michigan, and did some part-time police work along the way to make ends meet. In 1959, his mentor, John Hay, hired him as a public relations director of the St. Paul, Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. Jack worked there for 8 years before taking a job as the executive director of the Muncie, Indiana Chamber of Commerce. One day in the early 70s, he received a phone call from Holiday Inns of America in Memphis, offering him a job developing the new 3,000-acre Holiday Industrial Park they were building in Olive Branch. He accepted the position and moved to Olive Branch, where he led the efforts in the development of the Holiday Industrial Park, which included Olive Branch Airport and Holiday Inn University. Under his direction, Holiday Industrial Park became one of the major industrial and distribution complexes in North Mississippi. In 1978, Holiday Inn sold the industrial park and Jack was drawn back into law enforcement. He went to work for the DeSoto County Sheriff's Department, where he served as chief deputy and chief of detectives. He entered the political arena and twice ran for sheriff of DeSoto County. In 1997, he was appointed police chief of the city of Olive Branch, serving a transition period between the terms of police chief Frank Brown and Jim Harris. Jack was married to the former Linda Carver in 1982, and they would remain married for the rest of his life. They spent many vacations visiting his children and sister in Minnesota. One of his favorite pastimes was for he and Linda to get away for the weekend on their boat at Pickwick Lake. In 1982, he became the executive director of the Olive Branch Chamber of Commerce, which he had helped found 10 years earlier. He would lead the chamber for the next 22 years until his retirement in 2004 and build it into the premier Chamber of Commerce organization in the Mid-South. Today, the Olive Branch Chamber of Commerce annually presents the Jack McCollough Award to an area individual who distinguishes himself in the area of economic development. They also have the annual Jack McCollough Tennis Tournament named in his honor. One of Jack's favorite saying was, "Some people live off the community, some people live for the community." Jack McCollough lived for the Olive Branch community until his death on May the 11th, 2007, at the age of 71. In 2007, John B. Jack McCollough was one of the 10 charter inductees selected for the Olive Branch Hall of Fame. D.M. Milton Nichols. Milton Nichols was born October 5, 1935 in Winborn, Mississippi to V. Fields and Dutch Nichols. Milton, one of 4 children, was reared in Memphis and Olive Branch. He graduated from Olive Branch High School in 1953 after serving as class officer for 2 years, a member of the Oak Club for 2 years, and athletic manager for 4 years. He was a member of the band club for 3 years and the Glee Club for 3 years. Milton graduated from Ole Miss in 1956 with a BBA degree in banking and finance. At Ole Miss, he was a campus senator and a member of Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. He then graduated from Memphis State University in 1962 with a degree in law and was a member of the Delta Chi Delta Legal Fraternity. Milton served the city of Olive Branch as an alderman from 1973 to 1977. He was elected mayor in 1977 and served for 20 years until 1997 during a time of tremendous growth in the city. During his tenure as mayor, he became the city's first full-time mayor. Accomplishments during his time as mayor include the establishment of the Olive Branch Municipal Park System, negotiating the acquisition of the historic Wesson House, Olive Branch's first historic property, acquiring the historic Maples Memorial Methodist Church property for use as the police station and the court, establishing the Olive Branch City Beautiful Commission, creating the first full-time ambulance service and first full-time fire department. He established the annual Oktoberfest, the city's longest-running festival, established the city's first 4th of July fireworks festival at City Park, established the Plant Manager's Breakfast, which became the Chamber of Commerce monthly luncheons, adopted the city's first official logo and municipal flag, and worked to establish the Olive Branch Thrift Store, Clothing Exchange, and Food Bank. He approved the largest ever annexation of the municipal city limits, almost 15 miles in 1996, and acquired the Fairhaven Mineral Wells and Maywood water systems for the city of Olive Branch. Milton Nichols has served the Olive Branch community as Vice President of the DeSoto County Tax Advisory Committee, as a member of the DeSoto County Blue Ribbon Committee, the Goodman Road Now Committee, as a member of the Board of Mississippi Municipal Association. He currently serves as member of the Board of Directors of the YMCA, Methodist Senior Services, and as a past member of the Board of the Chickasaw Council of the Boy Scouts of America. Milton is a 50-plus year member of Maples Memorial United Methodist Church, where he is a member of the choir and past president of both the Administrative Board and the Finance Committee, as well as serving as a delegate to the Methodist National Conference. He was a charter member of the Olive Branch Country Club, Olive Branch Rotary Club, the Olive Branch Chamber of Commerce, the DeSoto Economic Council, and past president, secretary, and treasurer of the Olive Branch Lions Club. He is a past president of the Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee Councils of Government. Milton's married to the former Dorothy Harris. They have 2 children, Cynthia Armstead and Milton Keith Nichols, both of Olive Branch. Milton Nichols was one of the 10 people selected as a charter inductee into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame in 2007. G.B. Payne. G.B. Payne Sr. was born in Cedar View, Mississippi on February 22, 1906 to Allie and Milton Payne. He was the oldest of 8 children and 3 brothers and 4 sisters. He was raised in Cedar View and attended grade school there. He attended and graduated from the DeSoto County Agricultural High School in Olive Branch and then attended Nelson Business College in Memphis. He moved to Olive Branch in 1923 and went to work at the Bank of Olive Branch, where he would work for the next 50 years. He would later work at People's Bank and Trust. In 1938, G.B. married Janice Cochran, who would remain his wife for 46 years until his death in 1984. They had 1 son, G.B. Payne Jr., who lived his life in Olive Branch. G.B. served in the U.S. Army during World War II. He was stationed at Camp Shelby, Mississippi, where he attained the rank of corporal. He was active with the DeSoto County Soil Conservation Service and was a district commissioner for 20 years. He was a charter member of the Olive Branch Lions Club. He was elected alderman in 1950 and served the city in that capacity for 27 years until 1977, much of that time as chairman of the Board of Aldermen. He was a member of the DeSoto County Planning Commission. He was a member of Oak Grove Masonic Lodge number 293. He was the owner of Brantley Funeral Home and owner and partner of Payne Haraway Insurance Company. He was a dairy farmer for 20 years and director of American Milk Producers Incorporated. Up until his death on February 15, 1984, he was involved with walking horses, loved playing checkers, and was an avid collector of cut glass and antiques. G.B. Payne was a pillar of the Olive Branch community and was one of the 10 charter inductees selected for the Olive Branch Hall of Fame in 2007. Homer D. Skelton. Homer Skelton was born on May 27, 1931 in Alamo, Tennessee to Golden and Sparlin Skelton. He had 1 older brother and a twin sister. He was reared and attended high school in his hometown of Alamo. He served in the Tennessee National Guard for 4 years, attaining the rank of Staff Sergeant. After working briefly at International Harvester Company in Memphis and for a while with Ford Motor Company in Chicago, he was employed by Oakley Ford and Hohen Chevrolet in Memphis for 9 years before opening his own Ford dealership in 1964. In 1989, he opened Homer Skelton Ford on Craft Road in Olive Branch and followed 16 years later with a Hyundai dealership in 2006. 2007, he relocated Homer Skelton Ford to a state-of-the-art facility at the intersection of US 78 and Mississippi Highway 302. In 2005, Homer Skelton was the recipient of Ford Motor Company's National Salute to Dealers Award for his community commitment. Acknowledging the importance in today's world of a good education, he has contributed over $1 million over the past decade to the DeSoto County school system for projects serving students and their families. Each year he donates 350 bicycles to the most improved students in DeSoto and Shelby County and funds an annual scholarship to the Southern Baptist Education Center in South Haven, now called North Point. He donated $500,000 to construct the South Haven Field of Dreams baseball park for children with disabilities, and then followed up with an additional $100,000 in the name of his employees. He also supports the Boys and Girls Clubs of DeSoto County, of Memphis, Christian Counseling Center, Agape Counseling for Children in Foster Care, Hope House for Children, Special Kids and Family, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Toys for Tots, and various other anti-drug programs. He furnishes automobiles to numerous charities and drivers training programs and has donated an airplane for Civil Air Patrol students. In 2004, he was the recipient of the Governor's Initiative for Volunteer Excellence Award presented for a lifetime of achievement. Homer and his wife, Kathy, live in Olive Branch. They have 3 daughters, Rhonda, Renee, and Michelle. This information was not easy to obtain because Homer Skelton is a very private man from humble beginnings who feels he has been blessed and has an obligation to give back and help those less fortunate. He is a man who is defined by his deeds and not by his words. Homer D. Skelton was selected in 2007 as one of the 10 charter members of the Olive Branch Hall of Fame. Milton Sidney Blocker was born on November 30th, 1806. Other than the date of his birth, we know very little about him until 1836, when he owned a farm in Limestone County, Alabama. He was married to the former Frances Wilson. They lived in the same general area as Stephen Flynn, also a farmer, who was married to Frances's sister, Amaranda. This made Milton Blocker and Stephen Flynn brothers-in-law because of their marriage to the Wilson sisters. For months, in 1835, word had been spreading through the territory about land being available for settlement in North Mississippi as a result of the Chickasaw Cession resulting from the Treaty of Pontotoc Creek between the Chickasaw Nation and the United States government, which had relocated the Chickasaw Indians to Oklahoma. Blocker and Flynn decided to go for it. In the spring of 1836, they sold their farms in Alabama, loaded all of their possessions on a flatboat, and headed down the Tennessee River to the Ohio River, down the Ohio to the Mississippi River, and down the Mississippi to Memphis, where they disembarked. They loaded their belongings into several wagons and headed down the Pigeon Roost Trail into the newly opened Indian Territory in North Mississippi. On the second day out of Memphis, they chanced to meet a Chickasaw Indian, Lush Bun Tubby, who owned 1,280 acres of land that had been given to him under the terms of the treaty. After a brief negotiation on April 13, 1836, Blocker and Flynn purchased the 1,280 acres from Lush Bun Tubby for $1.25 per acre. The 2 sections of land were located where the heart of the present-day city of Olive Branch sits today. Blocker built the first house in the area on a site near present-day Shady Grove Cove. He then built a sawmill and a cotton gin several hundred yards to the west of his house on the site of today's Blocker Cemetery. In 1847, Milton Blocker, who had become successful growing cotton and milling lumber, was traveling down the Mississippi River to New Orleans on the steamboat Medora when the boiler exploded about 6 miles below Port Hudson and he was killed. He was brought back to Olive Branch and buried in the cemetery which bears his name today. His brother-in-law Stephen Flynn continued to live in the area until his death on December 2, 1858. He is also buried in Blocker Cemetery. As one of the founders of Olive Branch, Milton Blocker was selected in 2007 to be one of the 10 charter inductees into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame. Stephen Flynn was born in South Carolina on July 14, 1791 to Elizabeth Adams and William Flynn. He had 4 sisters, 2 younger and 2 older. The next thing we know about him was in January of 1816 he married Amaranda Wilson, and in 1836 they were living in Limestone County, Alabama, where they owned a farm. In the same general area lived Milton Blocker, also a farmer, who was married to Amaranda's sister Frances. This made Stephen Flynn and Milton Blocker brothers-in-law because of their marriage to Wilson sisters. Both Flynn and Blocker built houses on the property in Olive Branch that they acquired, and a new community began to form as new settlers began to pour into the area. Several years later, Flynn sold Blocker his interest in most of the 1,280 acres. In 1847, Milton Blocker was killed. Stephen Flynn continued to live in Olive Branch until his death on December 2, 1858. He is also buried in Blocker Cemetery. Stephen Flynn was selected as one of the 10 charter inductees into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame in 2007. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this first chapter in the Olive Branch Hall of Fame book. I look forward to continuing different videos as we create a new video year by year as new members are inducted into the Olive Branch Hall of Fame. Again, I'm Sam Reichard. I've served as your narrator, and I'm honored to do so. Thanks for watching.